Hi, this is Jeannie from Metal Dollhouse Rescue. I'm going to show you my Wolverine house. I finished cleaning it up. I have not painted it yet. I will do that online sometime when you guys can watch. But I am going to make the door that is available to you as a free download. And I thought if you could watch me make one, you could see it's not that hard and you would have confidence to make one for yourself. But first, let's take a look at this house. I finished cleaning it and it looks really good. It looks nice and shiny. Now some people talk about going over it like with a car wax or car wax wipes. I have not done that. I might do that sometime. I haven't tried it yet. Everything cleaned up good except that back corner there. That looks like dirt and I might try to clean again, but actually I think that is rust and the beginning of rust. So we're going to touch that up with paint. We'll clean it again. But everything else looks good, including that wall I straightened out looks really good. You can always try to take your hand and do a little bending too. That won't hurt it any. Otherwise, use that hammer. If you don't, you might remember I said use a hard rubber hammer, and it looks like this. But if you have just a regular hammer, you can use a regular one and wrap like a sock around that metal end. You just want to make sure that you don't do any dinging on the walls. Again, this is a nice sturdy house. All the walls are present, and that is typical of a Wolverine. Sometimes, however, the plastic pieces on the front are gone or the windows are gone. And I am working on replacement windows, and but I've already made the replacement surround, which you can get as a free download, and I've also done the replacement doors. Now, a couple weeks ago, I made the replacement yellow door, which goes on my other Wolverine, and Nancy suggested, I don't know if you recall, if you saw that video, it had a little paper tab there where the handle should be, and that way I could open it from the outside, and Nancy said, well, you can buy doorknobs for dollhouses, and I thought about that, but to me, it's always a debate. Do you want it to look as original as possible, or do you want it to be functional, or do you want it to be both? So I liked my paper tab, but I went ahead and put a brad on there, a metal brad, one of those that has the two little prongs, and that will function as my doorknob. Now, I'm not sure if I love it or don't love it, but if I don't love it, I can print myself a new yellow paper door and replace that. So, but I'm going to show you how to make one of these, only it's going to be white. So let's get going on that. Okay, here we go. Here we go. The first thing I've done is I printed off, this is the white door, and I don't know how well you can see that, but you'll be able to see it more as I start working on it, I imagine. I think that looks a little overexposed. You might not be able to see the door on there, but the door is printed on there, so we're going to cut that out. You're going to need pliers. I've got needle nose, but you could use regular pliers because we're going to do a little bit bending on a paper clip. You'll need a paper clip, and I've got two here. The small one is a little too small for what we're going to use. That's about, I don't know, an inch. You'll need one that's more like an inch and a half or 2 inches long. So that's the one we've got there, the bigger one. Not sure if you can see it very well. We're going to have scissors, and we're going to have some glue. I like to use Eileen's, so that's what we've got there. We're also going to use a piece of this plastic. This is the lid from Sherbet. But anything that's a large piece of plastic, or you could use cardboard, or you could use like cardstock, a piece of cardboard. I'm using this plastic. It's a nice weight. At first I thought I could use just the paper, but when I used just paper, it was a little bit too lightweight and the door was really flimsy. So I like to put this in the middle. Okay, I turned my light down a little bit because I thought it was a little overexposed so you can actually see those doors. Now this is going to be the outside of the door, and they are labeled for you. And this is going to be the inside of the door, so outside and inside. We're going to start with the inside of the door. Now, I'm sure you cannot see this, but on the outside of each of these doors, there's a little white border that sticks out. And I put that on there in case you want to use that. I will use it on this outside of the door. I will not use it on the one that's the inside of the door. So I'm just going to cut out the inside of the door first, and I'm not going to use those flaps. I'm just going to cut up right even with the door. Now these doors should be sized exactly, or very close to exactly, to fit your Wolverine house. They may fit another house. I don't know. You'd have to measure your opening on your other houses. I am working on some Marks doors that will be very similar to this. We've already got out there houses or doors for the T-cone houses. There's one for the 1948 house and also one for the 1951 T-cone house. And the Marks houses, I think, have a little bit bigger door. At least the ones I have a little bit bigger door. So, okay, we've got that cut out, and this is going to be the inside of the door. And I cut those flaps off. I'm not going to use them on this. But the reason you want this is because you want your plastic to be the very same size, and or if you're using cardstock or cardboard, you want it to be the same size. So I've done this in order to now cut around my plastic to have it the very same size. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you. I've got this started. I've cut around one side, go around the second side. I am using kitchen scissors. However, I have cut this with regular scissors. It's not that hard to cut. I'm going to get rid of that rim. It's getting in the way of my scissors. Let's get rid of it. There, I should have done that to start with. Live and learn. Now this door is printed on photography paper, so it's got a little shine to it, just like the original tin doors would have had. Oh, I guess these original doors are plastic, but they also had a little shine to them. So I've got both of those cut the very same size. So the door this will be the inside of the door. This part will be covered by the outside of the door. I'm going to go ahead and cut the outside of the door out. Now in this one, again, you probably cannot see those little flanges, but I'm going to cut around those. You'll be able to see when I get done that I've left a little bit of white paper there. The flange on the one side of the door is bigger than the other, and as we make this door, you'll be able to see why that is. I printed those little flanges very light, with a very light color, and so they won't, you know, detract. If anything shows, it won't detract. Now I'm going to leave this little paper tab here, like I did on the yellow door. You can watch that video if you're not sure what I'm talking about. That little flange, that little handle makes it so when you're on the outside of the door, you can open it up. There's something to grab onto, and you might not be able to see it, but it's right here by my thumb. So I'm going to cut that out next. And I'm just going to cut up to the edge of the door because everything else is going to get folded. Okay, so now you can see the door, and you can see I've left those white borders around there, and there's a reason for that. Now, here's a nice little trick. If you have something nice and square, you can use it to help your folds be nice and straight and crisp. I'm going to use, this is that little piece of, it's a piece of hardwood floor that we had left over from doing our floor in the living room. Now, if you don't have that, you can use anything you've got that's kind of hard and square on one edge. You could use a 2x4 or another small board, or maybe a book if the book is kind of heavy duty. But I'm going to press that down there so I got a nice crisp fold there. And fold that flange down. Then I'm going to fold it the rest of the way so it's nice and flat, and I've got a nice crisp fold. You could run something along there. I like to use just my fingers. There's actually a little folding tool. If you're into card making, you might have one. It's a piece of like hard plastic used for that very purpose, but you can just use your fingers or whatever you've got. You just want to make sure you don't use anything that's going to scrape the surface of your paper, because you want that little bit of shine to the door. That makes it look a lot like the original. Okay, I've got two sides done. Let's do this is the top. I'm just lining that up right where I want that fold to be, and then folding that flange down around there. I'm folding that flange then to the back. Now I'm going to do the one where I left that little knob, that little flap of paper to use for a doorknob on the outside, so I could easily grasp that to open and shut. Otherwise it was hard for me to get that door open from the outside. Now once you get your door on, you may not open and shut it a lot. You know, it depends how often you have company coming to your little dollhouse. I don't have a lot of people knocking on my dollhouse door, but if I want to show it off, I want to be able to open and shut that door. Okay, that's ready to go. Now, the other thing you need is that paper clip. And remember, I needed that little bit bigger paper clip. Here it is again. I think you can see it better now. This is the smaller paper clip, which I think is not quite long enough. But you know what? I'm going to double check, just in case I've made a mistake. It's got to be long enough to go on the edge of this door, because this is going to act as a hinge, and it works really, really, really well. So I'm glad that there's something easily available that you can use to make this work for you. Now, if you don't have one, if you had a piece of hanger, like a metal hanger or any other piece of wire, that would be, it's got to be sturdy enough to kind of hold its shape. It doesn't have to be real heavy wire. Paper clips work good because they'll hold their shape pretty good, but they're not real bulky. Okay, it's got to be long enough to stick out on the top and the bottom. And see, that's just not, that short one's just not quite long enough. See, you got to have some stick out on the top and the bottom. So I remembered right. So I'll use my longer paper clip. You can use your fingers. You want it to be somewhat straight. It doesn't have to be crazy straight. You can use your pliers if you'd like. I'm just using my fingers to get it somewhat straight. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. It's just got to be able to go from top to bottom somewhat straight. So it's got a few little kinks, but it's not bad. Now you can see this one is long enough. So see what the deal was. It's got to be long. Long enough to extend over the top and the bottom. I'll lay it down so you can see. Now on the bottom, you want just a little bit sticking out like that. Just a little bit. I'm talking down here. Just a little bit sticking out. On the top, you've got room to have more sticking out when you put the door in, but not this much. You don't want that much sticking out. So you want maybe a 1/2 inch on the top, and on the bottom, I'd say no more than a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to break my paper clip right here. So I have a 1/2 inch at the top, and maybe a 1/4 inch or even a little bit less on the bottom. Okay, so you can see just a little bit sticking out in the bottom, and then there'll be about a 1/2 inch at the top. At the top, there's room in that plastic for that to go up in there. Now, these instructions are assuming that you have the plastic frame on the outside of your house present. If you don't, here's the plastic frame. If you don't have that piece, then you would want more paper clip on the top and the bottom, because then you're probably going to glue those ends of paper clip, you're going to glue them right to the side of your house. But if you have this frame, there's already holes in there to accommodate this paper clip. So that's how we know what we're doing. So to break this off, an easy way, you could use a wire cutter, or you can just take your pliers and hold it and bend it, and then you go like that. Now, one thing I did mean to do, and I forgot to do it, is I wanted to put a little tiny bend here in the middle of the paper clip. And the reason I like to do that is because I like to keep that paper clip from slopping around inside the paper a lot. So if you've got a little bit of a purpose bend in there, that keeps that paper clip from like rotating around inside your paper door. So hopefully I left enough on this paper clip in order to do that. So I'm just going to put a little tiny wing in there, or bump, on purpose on that paper clip. And that will help stabilize that within the, because this goes inside the 2 layers of paper. So to help stabilize that a little bit. And now I'm straightening the rest of my paper clip out just a little bit more. I didn't want it to be too bent, especially since I put that little bend in there. Okay. Again, I'm just straightening it a little bit. Okay, got that done. So now hopefully we've got enough paper clip left there to have a little bit stick out the bottom and a little bit more stick out the top. Oh yeah, look at that. Good. A little bit out the bottom and just a little bit more out the top. So let me put this against the white background so you can see that. Got it? So when you've got enough paper clip, the way you like it, we're going to glue. But the first thing you're going to do is put that plastic in there. You can put just a little bit of glue on that if you want. Let's make sure our paper folds around that real good. It should. Everything should be really nice. Oh yeah, look at there. Of course it does. I'm going to bend that little handle that I left. Remember, I left that little handle on purpose. Bend it in half because it doesn't need to be all that long. I might trim that plastic just a bit. I'm going to hold it up to my house. You probably can't see this, but make sure the size is good. It is good. Imagine that. Okay, let's finish it up. Okay. Now you could put, if you wanted, put a tad bit of glue between the plastic and the paper. It doesn't need a lot because it's all going to be folded in there nice and tight. So let's just put a bit in there. I like this Eileen's glue. You could probably use Elmer's, or I like a nice thick craft glue because it'll kind of hold it in place for you. Probably could use hot glue. So I put a few dots of glue in there just to keep that nice and stable. Now I'm going to put the paper clip in next. And remember, it's got that little bitty wing in there, that little bump, just to help me give it something to glue on to. See that little bump right there? It's right by this thumb. But you're going to put it up there in the fold. And this, you're going to keep, remember, out of the bottom of the door, about a 1/4 inch or less. It just needs a little bit. I'm going to straighten mine out a little bit right there, because there's not much there to hook onto. That's why those little doors get lost, actually, because there wasn't ever a lot there. That's why your doors are often missing. Plus, on the original door, I have an original white door. But on the original white door, there's just little tiny prongs right there, little plastic prongs that are easily broken off. So, at any rate, I wanted to show you how to make this. Okay, then we're going to just run some glue there along that paper clip, because we want him in place to stay there. Doesn't need a lot. And then a little bit on under each flap. And we're going to glue those flaps down. And Eileen's glue is nice because it's nice and tacky, so it will start to hold right away. If you used hot glue, it would also hold right away for you. But you might burn your fingers. This way you're not going to burn them. My biggest issue here is keep my glue off of my other fingers so that I don't get glue on this side of the door. Just want to keep all your glue on this side of the door. Because since it's just paper, you can't wash that glue off if it gets on the paper. And you can actually, tear a little spot on your paper. Although it's the paper's heavier than regular printer paper. This is 24-pound paper. If you get printed at like Staples or Office Max, they use a little heavier paper even than that. But this paper I bought on Amazon. And if you buy from me, you'll get at least 24-pound paper, or you might get, depending if I had to go to Office Max and make more copies, you might get the heavier paper. I just want those to be down flat. I think they're getting there. Good. Once they're down flat, we're going to take that inside of the door and we're going to glue it on. Have to do it the same way. So it's, right side up. I got a little glue there, but I think I can scrape it off. Okay. So now we're just going to glue on this, and then it's actually going to be done. You could let it dry a little bit. Sometimes I put a book or something on it and let it dry overnight. But I don't use a lot of glue, just some ... You want to keep that paper in place. Doesn't need a lot. You don't want it squeezing out the edges. I'm going to put a little bit inside that little paper handle that I made. Okay. Then place the inside of the door on there. It just has to be glued on. It's really just about ready, I would say. I'm going to lay it down and kind of squish it. I might use my hardwood floorboard so I don't get glue fingerprints on everything again. Okay, it's done. Now it could, like I said, you could leave it to dry overnight, but essentially it is done, and then it's an exact replica. Actually, this is taken from a picture of an actual door, so it's an exact replica of the original white door, and it will work in the house exactly the same way. Now, they're not too hard to put in, but I don't know if I can get it in quickly on camera or not, because it takes a little bit of doing it from the inside and doing it from the outside. There's a hole in the top of this frame that longer one will go up in. Then you're going to bend that door just a little bit on the paper clip and put the bottom in. Guess what? We're in. And it's the right size. And it will open and shut. Now my glue's still wet, so it's going to, but see, it will open and shut. And I've got that little handle there, which, like I said, I kind of am liking that. So it's an exact door from the original. All right, I got it in. I moved that paper clip over just a little bit because I had a little bit of a gap here on the right hand side of the door. So I put that, since the glue was still wet, I was able to move that paper clip over. So now it still needs dried up there a little bit, but now you can see it will open and shut just right. And after the glue dries a little bit, it should be just perfect. So you can see it wasn't that hard to do. I did it, even talking a lot, I did it in 20 minutes, start to finish. So you can do it too. Good luck to you. Talk to you next time.